I know this little guy is for Trench Crusade and I haven't played D&D in a hot minute, but I think I have to make a wizard next. Casting Fireball with a scope? That's badass. I'm out of spells, but I ain't out of shells. Now we've covered a lot of the volumetric paint style on the channel, and it's usually Space Marine armor. And by usually, I mean almost fucking always. And honestly, it's because Space Marines are so plain and generic that there's a lot of space to work with and it's pretty easy to show this style on. But something that I really have to stress is this is not non-metallic metal. It is kind of how I do my non-metallic metal, but we're talking about shapes instead of materials. And because we are talking shapes and materials, it means it's not actually limited to specific materials. Which is ironic, because we're going to try it out on robes, which would be made out of material. We've done this a few times, and a few videos ago, even on this exact Space Wolf. And nothing about the application or approach is going to change. The whole point of this video is to show that no matter the material, everything has a shape. So layer, 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 blend, 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 draw the rest of the fucking owl, and we end up here. Technique aside, the one thing that we are going to change is color selection. Taking inspiration from this Space Wolf scheme, we're actually going to make it brighter by making everything else darker. I know it seems strange, but I actually needed a bit more of a jump between the Neptune glow and the ice yellow. The other thing that's going to change here is the shape, which means we have to slightly adjust our idea of placement. For 90% of painting, I find it easier to paint from inside to out, and that means covering all of the recesses and anything that's further back physically before trying to hit the sticky outy bits. And in most cases, we kind of do this anyway because a lot of us paint from dark to light. So when running with that same idea, we're going to paint all the darkest colors first and they're going in the recesses. So now we need deep, we need dark, we need our shadow tone. And yeah, I absolutely 100% get it, this is not a dark shadow tone. But in contrast to how bright the rest of the highlights will be, it is pretty dark. Trust me, I get that this looks sketchier than a balding guy in a trench coat in a dark alleyway, but stick with it, there's a pretty decent surprise coming. Not the same kind of surprise that you get from the guy in the trench coat.
A surprise for you.
With all our shadows set, we're going to move into Thunderous Blue, which is our mid-tone. And for placement, this is actually fairly easy. You can think of the placement here a little bit like a paint by numbers. All of our shadow tones have gone into the most physical, deepest recesses of the model. The complete reverse of this is that all the highlights are going to go on the physical highest points of all the model. So our mid-tone is basically just going to be the bridge that connects the two. Usually with sketching, you do jump straight into the highlights. And that kind of order is all personal preference. Me personally, I like to work again from dark to light, so after all those shadow tones are in there, I'm coming into the next color in the next step. And for placement, it's just going to sit right next to the shadow tone. And that's because we're going to start blending all of these together. This is roughly what it's going to look like in succession. Now the reason that I'm doing this is because light, bright, and pastel colors really suck to glaze. So instead, I'm going to be wet blending all of these transitions. And if you're thinking, why did you lay down all of those fucking colors just to come back and wet blend everything together? And that's fair, you can wet blend everything together in a single pass. But what we've spent the last few minutes doing is more mapping out where our placements are going to be. And this actually does a few things for us. One, pre-mapping actually gives us a fairly good representation of if everything is sitting where it should be. And if it's not, it's a lot easier to go back and adjust those placements if you haven't gone 4 steps ahead. And 2, it looks a lot more deliberate when you've actually planned out where everything is going to sit. And placement aside, the other thing that's going to happen is we already have our biggest, boldest, brightest colors set up. So when it comes to adding a transition, we're only blurring those layers together. We don't have to keep building after that. With the first 2 colors sketched in and blended back, the next step is where we really start to pull the shape out. And yes, this is going to be a fairly wild jump because the color selection is a little insane if I'm being honest. Most people won't take something like this to these kind of extremes. This is a little bit more representative of maybe a silk or something pearlescent. But the wilder the jump, the easier it is to showcase all of these steps and layers and how they come together. With that same idea of painting by numbers, we've covered the mids, the shadows, and now we just need the highlights. And the placing for this is just as self-explanatory. Highlights, high points. The real difference between this and what we usually do is the physical shape itself. If you break each fold down into a simplified shape, it's essentially just a cylinder. And since it's a vertical cylinder, all we're doing is moving up and down. This is a reminder just to reload each color because we've already mapped it in. Painting this way with a little bit sketchier style does really seem like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And honestly, that's the easiest way to think about this, because we are stepping all the way up and then we have to blend back each layer. And to be quite frank, this is not as big of an issue as a lot of people make it out to be. There is a lot of back and forward work in miniature painting, whether you see it in the videos or you don't. Unfortunately, while most videos are educational based, they are still entertainment. And that usually means that the least entertaining of the footage gets left on the cutting room floor. I genuinely think everybody is a better painter than what they think they are. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the back and forward not actually being shown in videos. Some people call it cleanup, others call it refining. Either way, the more time you spend on this, generally the better the outcome. This process is a little different than the usual volumetric video that we do. Instead of building everything up layer by layer by layer like a topographical map and then blending everything back, this has been a little bit more about actually sketching in where everything's going to sit, from the shadows, the midtones to the highlights. In most painting styles, there is a fairly firm process. This one isn't quite that. All we're actually trying to do is create depth perception and exaggerate the shapes. Doesn't really matter how you get there, as long as you get there. Think about all of these gradients as a wave. It also helps to visualize since we're working on robes and all the folds actually do kind of look like waves. As you're building up from the depth, everything is getting brighter right up until the precipice. And then of course it comes back down again. But while you're at the top, this is where our extreme highlight is going. Except believe it or not, we're not there yet. When you start blending back, especially in smaller areas, you do start to cover a little bit that you probably almost shouldn't. It's fine, it's perfectly natural, it can be fixed. So even though we've already built all the way up into Neptune Glow, that's exactly what I'm laying down again. And you can already start to see how much of an additional punch that adds. But just like Uncle Ben used to say, with great power comes great responsibility. This is already building up to be incredibly bright. And because it is so incredibly bright, this is the reason that we get away with using such a light shadow tone. Especially when we kick it up even further into ice yellow as our actual extreme highlight. The contrast between the ice yellow and the alien purple is pretty fucking extreme already. And if we use a darker color, it was going to be even more extreme. You don't always need the deepest, darkest colors to represent a shadow. You just need a little bit of variation. Speaking of, we're going to do this exact same thing on a different angle. All of the folds in our robe so far have been vertical, but moving into the horizontal, this is where things take a little bit of a change. We're still going to be using the same ideas for color, contrast, and placement, but it's going to start to achieve a little bit of a different feeling here. And even though we're going in an opposite direction, there is actually a reason that it feels so simpatico. It's because now we're continuing the idea of light placement. Whether we consciously think about it or not, we know how light works. And if we're imagining an ambient light source with one spot that's a little brighter than the rest, everything has to follow the same path. All of the vertical folds in the robe are going to have the light beaming down the shape, because we're still talking about the physical shape of the model. But when you have a very similar shape, like the arms for example, pointing in a different direction, it's still going to be hitting the physical top of the model. It's the same idea in the same order and the same reaction to light, the only difference is now it's wider instead of longer. Shadows still go on the bottom, highlights still go on the top. With what we were talking about before in breaking down the folds into a basic shape and becoming a cylinder, an arm is a cylinder. We're taking the exact same basic shape and rotating it roughly 90 degrees. Keep this as simple as possible. The more you overthink this idea, the less likely you are to get a recognizable outcome. Something that you may have noticed that I'm quite big on is building a focal point. And all that means is we're trying to draw the eye in a specific direction. In most cases, it will be the face because the eye kind of wants to look at eyes for some reason, and you're going to be shit out of luck on a sniper priest. And to do this, what you may have noticed is the robes are a lot darker on the bottom than they are at the top. They are gradually getting brighter the higher they get. So by the time we get to the hood, we're going brighter again. Just like before, when we're breaking down individual shapes into their individual shapes, you can actually do the same thing with the model in its entirety. And when you do, those exact same rules apply. Because we're imagining our light source from above, just as it is most of the time, we want the shadows on the bottom and the highlights on the top. And yes, even though we are painting each section to be their own little environment of shadow to highlight, we still want to continue this idea across the model itself. And even though we're going to be using the same colors in the same order to be able to achieve this, what we're actually doing is changing the amount of space that each value is going to take up. If we break this whole thing down into the thirds, we have the bottom skirt or the bottom robe that is going to be slightly darker, which just means we're not going to build our highlights up quite to the same intensity. When we came to the torso and the arms, you'll notice again, everything is a lot brighter. The highlights are taking up a lot more space than they did in the bottom third, which means by the time we get to the hood, we need to take up a lot more space in the highlights and midtones.
Sit tight because we are getting brighter. I'm just here to tell you that the army painter are dope. Heresy 5.
When pushing this idea that everything across the entire model is moving from dark to light as well, it's not just a question of getting brighter and lighter paints. The other thing that we can do to suggest that the light is shifted or we're pulling focus towards is actually by lessening the shadow. On the bottom third of the miniature, you'll notice that there is a lot more of that alien purple as our shadow tone. And when we got to the torso, it was definitely there, but it was a lot less. So by the time we make it up to the hood, yes, we are going to be pushing some more of those extreme highlights, but we're also going to be taking away a lot of the alien purple as our shadow tone. It's still definitely present, but it's a little bit more of a nuance. These are still the same paints in the same order doing the same thing. All they're doing now is occupying different amounts of space. And yes, it is kind of wild that this prismatic white robe is purple, blue, and turquoise.
We've done it on armor, we've now done it on robes, and you can do the exact same thing with skin.
This is the exact same skin recipe that I've been using for a while now. Terrestrial Titan topaz skin into opal skin. If you want to take a little higher, you can add ice yellow. And we're actually back to the traditional layer and half-step blending idea. The volumetric painting style is still more about the destination than the journey. But what doesn't change is how we approach the shapes. All of the Terrestrial Titan is going to seed in as our deepest, darkest shadow. And then as we layer up, we're just going to add a little bit more topaz skin into the Terrestrial Titan for every single layer. After we get to pure topaz skin, then we start adding in the opal skin or even the ice yellow to start brightening things up. And even though we've changed the technical application here, what hasn't changed is basic shapes. The same concept still applies. If it's anything in the shadows, so it's physically deeper or further away from you, it's going to be darker. The closer it gets to you physically, it's going to be brighter. And the best case for that here is you can see all the highlights in the center of the forehead, and as it moves back towards the temples, a lot more of that dark Terrestrial Titan is showing through. Also, yes, this thing does really just have eye sockets. There is nothing in there. With some blood effects, you could make this as gory as you wanted. Or have a little bit of fun with it with some fluorescent pink and make it look like he's glowing from the inside out. I should have done that.
Armor, robe, skin. I don't see why a beard would be any different.
And that's because it's not. Even though beards have a lot more detail because they're trying to represent the individual strands, we're still talking about something that effectively works the same way as a cloak or a robe. You have a lot of movement and a lot of waves, but we can break those down into simple shapes too. The only difference here is hair is transparent. Because there are so many fine strands, light does tend to interact with it a little differently. There is a workaround for this. For the shapes, we're going to treat it exactly like the robe. The top of the folds are going to be where all our highlights are, and then as we curve back into those recesses and those folds, that's where our shadows are going to sit. The only thing that we're going to do differently is those transitions are going to take a little bit more space. We want everything to blend into each other closer to the mid-tone. Otherwise, it's going to look like a stripy raccoon tail strapped to his face.
Now, here's the thing. I really wasn't bullshitting when I said it could be used on any shape and any material. Something that's actually going to play one of the biggest parts is the contrast to what kind of material it looks like it's representing. So, even though we have done it on shiny armor, a semi-shiny robe if we're really being honest, skin that is just kind of highlighted but I wouldn't quite say shiny, and now it can actually be used for non-metallic metal. The only thing here that's going to get a little bit more extreme is the contrast between dark and light.
And the color. We're going to change the color. For all the metallics on the Sniper Priest rifle, we're basically just going to be running with gold. Or at least my approximation of gold. I like to dial it back with a little bit of an antique brass kind of feel. It's just a little extra classy. If you want to take it to a yellow gold like you've been rubbing the fuck out of Aladdin's lamp, then all you need is a little bit of a glaze or a tint of yellow on top. Even though we're going to be doing the same thing on the same shapes because these are just cylinders, we want this to read as metallic, an actual shiny reflective surface. And to do that, all we're going to do is change the contrast. The shadows are going to be a lot darker, the mid-tone is going to be a little bit more present, and the highlights are going to be extreme. If we went darker in the shadows on the robe, this exact same thing would happen. Which is why, even though we're playing with the exact same technique in the same order, playing with those different values are going to give you different outcomes. A matte cloth isn't going to have the same extreme value jumps as something reflective like metal would. Which is why we don't need the same level of contrast.
Look, we already have a gold barrel, we may as well keep rolling with the idea that the Sniper Priest has unlocked weapon skins. What's life without a little bit of whimsy?
I'm going to be 100, there is absolutely no rhyme or reason that this sniper rifle is pink. And originally, I was going to paint it quote-unquote properly and just do like brown and silver. But let's be honest, that is so incredibly mind-numbingly boring. But here's the cool thing about painting. 1, it's completely up to you. And 2, it's just paint. If you fuck up or you don't like it, even if you spent an hour on it, you can always go back, spend another hour, and change those colours. We put a whole lot of pressure onto something that's supposed to be fun. And as far as immersion, you can think of that in 2 ways. 1, he has no eyes, it's kind of a little bit funny if somebody just swapped out his rifle. And 2, if you want representation, if we're being completely honest, if I got thrown into this setting, that is exactly what I'm taking into battle. Life tip, don't fuck with somebody ostentatious enough to walk into battle with a pink, purple, gold rifle and a leopard print strap. I can confidently say 110%, they will fuck you up. Yes, the back isn't done quite to the same standard as the front. This is a YouTube video. We're just here to party. As always, a massive thank you to InGames, the Army Painter, and the best Patreon members in the world. Big love, you filthy heretics.